Hey everybody, Chef Nicole and Eric coming to you again virtually from the kitchen market. Today we're going to be showing you guys how to prepare a vegetable chowder. This dish takes from start to finish about 50 minutes. And yeah, Nicole, you ready to get started?
Absolutely, I'm really excited about this dish. We are talking about some reoccurring ingredients from the spaghetti bolognese recipe that we did last week. One of the reasons that we're talking about the reoccurring ingredients, and we selected these recipes, well, Eric did very thoughtfully, is around the idea that obviously if you're utilizing ingredients in multiple recipes, it's going to lower your cost overall. So are you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Awesome.
All right, so to get started, what we're going to do is add 1 onion, which we diced, to our pan. And we're going to let it cook for about a minute before adding our celery and carrot.
So do you want to just tell me a little bit more about the dish? I mentioned in the intro just that we're looking at reoccurring ingredients, but I know you spent a lot of time thinking about these recipes and the order that they're done in. Would you mind sharing with our audience kind of more about the process?
Absolutely, absolutely. So basically, as many of you know, we did the spaghetti bolognese last time for our first meal actually. And basically, you know, the inspiration for this dish is really derived from the spaghetti bolognese, as both of them require mirepoix, which is basically equal parts onion, celery, and carrots. So, you know, those are looked at as the base to both of these dishes. And, you know, while we try to, you know, prove and emphasize this philosophy of, you know, ingredients, that being the mirepoix of onion, celery, and carrot, we are proving that, you know, with a select amount of ingredients, you can make more than one dish. So the onion's been cooking for about a minute now, and we're gonna add our celery and carrot and give it a good stir. And, you know, as Chef Nicole and I were discussing earlier, you know, both celery and carrot are relatively inexpensive ingredients. And carrot especially is in season right now. So it's readily available at basically every grocery store.
Absolutely. I think that's the great thing about these recipes. It's just showing how affordable they can be while still being really nutritious. And I think that's kind of the idea behind the Community Cooking Collective. And you can, of course, correct me if there's any area that you want to expand on as well. Just that we often think that healthy, nutritious food has to be expensive. And
That's right.
It's really not. And these recipes are really also geared to beginner cooks.
Yes.
Right? They're not meant to need a ton of skill in the kitchen, but more helping to empower people in the kitchen to be able to use affordable ingredients, use the skill level that they have, and maybe build on that through this video series that you guys can really feel good about the food that you're making at home.
All right, so now our veg has been sweating for a bit, so we're gonna add our butter to the pan and start making our roux. But Chef Nicole and I like to call this our cheater roux. And Chef Nicole, why do we call it a cheater roux?
Well, traditionally, a traditional roux is equal parts fat and flour. In this case, we're using butter. If you were making this dish vegan, you could certainly do it with just like oil, an olive oil or a vegetable oil.
Right.
And then add the flour in. I just call this kind of like a bit of a cheater roux because we actually just sprinkle the flour over top of the vegetables. But when you add in the stock, you're gonna still get that thickening effect from just like you would with a traditional roux.
Right.
But since our vegetables are already in the pan, we just might as well leave them in there.
Absolutely.
So that's why we're not making it separate and then adding it in.
Simplifying the process.
Exactly.
Which is what we're going for. And, you know, like Chef Nicole said, you know, with a roux, it's always equal parts fat to equal parts flour. So the butter I just added in there was 3 tablespoons of butter. And now, since it's kind of melted and incorporated with the vegetables, we're gonna add our flour to actually make our roux. And when doing this, I like to kind of add it in 2 segments. So we'll go with half of it right now, give it a good stir. And then once we have stirred it, we will add the rest of it and continue to stir. And Chef Nicole, do you want to tell us, you know, the type of consistency we're looking for when creating our cheater roux?
Yeah, as with this or even with the traditional roux, what you're looking for is kind of like a wet sand texture. That's what you're looking for with the two parts. And then you're just going to incorporate it. You're going to let it cook for a minute or two just to cook some of the rawness out of the flour. And then you're going to add in your stock ground and then add in the stock. And I think you're probably about ready to do that now, right?
Definitely. So we're just gonna give it one more quick stir, and then we will add our stock. And we have 2 cups of vegetable stock here. If you only have beef or chicken stock at home, that's fine to use as well. But we're trying to stay true to the recipe by only using vegetable stock because it is, in turn, a vegetarian dish.
Excellent. Now, is there like some seasonings you're going to be adding in there as well?
Absolutely. So now that we've added our broth, we're adding our herbs and salt and pepper. But before we do that, I just wanted to make a note of something. When using stock, I love to use these Knorr cubes because they're individually packaged. They come with 6 cubes in a box. But I want you guys to mind something. I want you guys to always look at the sodium content. This has 890 milligrams of sodium per half a cube. So it is a lot of sodium, and with that, you have to take into account the salt that you're putting into the dish. So if the stock has a lot of sodium, you might want to add less salt. I suggest adding 2 teaspoons, but you might want to dial that down. It's totally up to you. So anyways, now that we've added our stock in, we will go with our salt and pepper. Again, 2 teaspoons salt and 1 teaspoon pepper. I've used white pepper just so we can, keep the color of the chowder consistent, nice and white. But if you don't have white pepper, black pepper is totally fine. And then we're gonna add our herbs. So we have 2 teaspoons of basil and 2 teaspoons of thyme. Give that a nice stir, and then we'll let it cook down for a few minutes before we add our milk. All right, so our pot's been cooking for about 10 minutes, and we have brought our milk up to temperature. We've just been simmering it for about 5 to 6 minutes. So I'm gonna add the milk into our pot as well as the corn. And we add the corn towards the end because it's already cooked corn kernels. Chef Nicole, do you wanna tell us why, maybe from more of the technical side, why we need to bring our milk up to temperature before adding it to the pan?
Sure, so you don't wanna add cold milk to a hot liquid because the milk doesn't have a very high fat content, and so it could actually split apart. And so if you've ever had kind of where your milk is kind of floating, there's these little separations on top, it's still edible, but it's definitely going to change the texture and just the flavor that you're going to get from it. So if you were using, say, a 35% cream or something like that with a really high fat content, you could add it directly without so much concern. But since we're trying to make these recipes super budget friendly and mostly from stuff you have on hand, then we're using milk. So that's why we just want to make sure that we're bringing it up to temperature before we add it in.
Exactly. Oh, good point. And with that, as Chef Nicole said, we're using everything we have on hand. So for the cheese toast, as you can see, these are just 2, generic slices of bread. And what we're gonna do is, as you can see, I've added cheese on top of it. We'll add a bit of salt and pepper and broil it in the oven, and it'll make for a super nice side to accompany the chowder. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time where we'll be making a shepherd's pie. Please make sure to refer to the description to see a copy of this recipe as well as the cost sheet associated with it. Chef Nicole, anything you want to add?
Of course, as always, I want to say a special thank you to the Kitchener Market. We are here in the marketplace recording all of the series for you. So thank you to them for the use of this space. And don't forget, the market is open from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays. The winter market is happening, so everything has moved indoors. There are safety protocols in place, guys, so head over to the kitchenermarket.ca website for more information on that. And we look forward to seeing you guys online for this series or right here at the Kitchener Market really soon. Have a fantastic day.